very good morning and welcome to Morning Express on this 29th day of May 2020. We're glad to have you right here on Morning Express, where as usual we're going to be looking at what is making headlines on the dailies, but also later on we'll be looking at the week and reviewing some of the things that have been going on. And of course we know there's been quite a lot, especially politically speaking, but also we've hit an all-time high when it comes to the COVID-19 positive cases right here in Kenya. So that's something that we're going to be looking at right here as we go along. But I'm not alone. Trix, good morning and great to have you back.
Good morning to you, Michael. Thank you
very much. I sure hope
that
you brought us some good news from whatever secret mission that you had gone up to.
Just nothing but smiles and positive energy, I guess.
Well, I'm sure we could do with some of that. So welcome aboard.
Absolutely. And those stories that you have mentioned, the dramatic political week as well as the COVID-19 virus spreading are being covered in the dailies, and that's going to be what we'll be reviewing on Press Review. And we have a Member of Parliament for Kimilili, Bididmas Baraza, in studio ready to take on that with us. But aside from that, we do encourage you to be a part of the conversation by contributing to our question of the day. And today we are asking you, do you think the House purge by the Jubilee and NASA parties will strengthen party loyalty? Do you think the House purge by Jubilee and NASA will strengthen party loyalty? Get on Twitter, tell us what you think, and we will be sampling your views as the show goes along. I'm Trix Ngado, he's at Michael Gitonga, and the hashtag to use is KTN Morning Express.
Absolutely, and of course we are looking forward to a great show later on. We'll also have Brian Aseli giving us hot topics, and we'll also have celebrity chat. And today I'm yet to meet somebody who does not like or has anything negative to say about Sauti Sol. They're going to be, well, part of the celebrity guest, and that's something to look forward to. So we have a great show packed and ready for you right here on Morning Express as we get ready to get into the weekend. But for now, I'm going to hand over to Trix to take us through what's making headlines on the daily.
Absolutely, and we are going to start this on an educational note. On the Standard this morning, the front page tells us that schools are to open on September and final exams in February. This is a proposal by the Magoha-led task force. Now, Education CS George Magoha will today receive a report from the team collecting views on the reopening of schools and in learning institutions that were shut in March after Kenya recorded its first case of the coronavirus infections. Now, this is a story that's more details are on page 4 of the Standard. Everyone has been adversely affected by this, and parents have their hands full right now with the kids at home. So this at least gives a plan, but it awaits, as the article asserts, the advice of the Health Ministry. What do you make of this, Honorable Baraza?
I think this is a step in the right direction because, you know, contrary to those who have been saying that schools should not be reopened,
yes,
and that the students should wait for at least this academic year should be cancelled. They don't understand that in Kenya, for a parent to take his child through one academic year,
yes,
hopefully they have to sell you know, a piece of land or some cattle. It's very, very expensive.
It's a sacrifice.
It's a sacrifice. And the fact that whatever Kenyans that have been tested, the number is very meager compared to 47 or 50 million Kenyans. You know, it means that maybe we have very many Kenyans who have this virus, but their bodies is kind of developing the internal immunity to be able to deal with it. And the ministry must do everything possible. And at the very worst, provide personal protective equipment for these children. Let them learn in an open field. And I think for the first time, the learning environment in this country will be equal among all spheres, whether you are rich or poor, because we know in this country we have some children who learn in very good classrooms. We have others who also purchase the education under trees, but they sit for the same national examination. So I think this task force has done quite a good thing, and we will hope. You see, when the whole world is opening up, you will see the Premier League, you know, is resuming next month, and I think this shows that at least the people all over the world are kind of developing immunity, and the government will continue to enforce the very basic, you know, guidelines, including social distancing, wearing of face masks, sanitizing,
yes,
screening at the gate when the children are coming in and going out to ensure that those that have we should even remove even the issues of breaks, that during break time,
right,
they will try again to check, and they will even have a situation where when a teacher comes in class before he or she begins to teach, he can even try to carry out the temperature checks. That's the basic things.
Yeah.
So that we do not want to allow this COVID-19 ground the education sector of this country. Yes.
But Honorable Barasa, one of the things that I think would come to mind when it comes to schools is the fact that perhaps we might not have enough of these protective gear. At that level of students, you might talk about masks and sanitizers. So how would you see the ministry handling this, given that even health practitioners and medics are not 100% equipped for this as we speak?
The personal protective equipment that students and other Kenyans are supposed to use are not as expensive as those that the medics are supposed to be using. And Kenya is a rich country. Money is available. There's no problem that where you can say that we can implement austerity measures.
Would you foresee a situation where the government would provide this for free?
They should be able to provide this for free. It should be part of free education. Because there is no another thing that we should look into. The schools should reopen. And for those who are saying the only area that I want to agree with this task force is pushing exams to next year.
Yeah, February.
Exams ought to have been done as planned because if you look at the candidates, both in secondary school and the primary schools, there are very few, because when they are sitting for these exams, the rest of the classes are at home.
But then we'd see massive failure because they've not been...
No, I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
When you set exam to what you have taught.
Okay.
I live in a country where since I graduated, since I finished school, I don't use 70% of what I was taught in school. Much of it is just to assist me to be able to understand what other things are coming forward. So they can standardize the exams to restrict the setting of exams to that particular areas that they have covered. And I think it's enough. Of course, with this new curriculum of CBCs, where you don't really... We have been on record saying that we have too much theories. So, if we are going to restrict ourselves, that we set exams on the basis of what the teachers have so far taught before the schools were closed, yes. I think we will still get students being promoted to the next class. And even when they go to the next class, the teachers can do some kind of a crash program, even though not examinable, on the previous topics that were not covered.
Right.
So because we've been in a country, I know for a fact that most high schools, or most even students, most teachers, they will be done with the syllabus as early as the month of June.
This
so they
yeah.
can restrict, now they can redirect all the efforts of the remaining period of the calendar year, not just revising for exams, but trying to take the children through what they never covered during this COVID-19 pandemic.
And of course, it remains to be seen what is advised, but logically speaking, as the article put it, and scientifically speaking, only doctors and health experts can advise on when schools should reopen. So we'll be keeping an eye on that one as it unfolds. But we are also told that medics, on page 5, that medics test students for the virus, which is also an important way of keeping up with how it is being spread. And speaking of said virus, on the Business Daily this morning, there's a very interesting question that is being asked on the front page. We are asked, was the 8-point stimulus good enough? The jury is still out, according to this article, and they're asking, they're trying to delve into whether this is going to help revamp the economy or not. And the president did roll out that a few days ago. What is your take on that and how it is possibly affecting the local economy as we go along?
First, the economic stimulus was a good step in the right direction, but I don't think if it is enough to caution Kenyans from this post-COVID-19 impact. And I think the government will continue to. And I was on record when Parliament we were passing these laws, and I was on record saying that the reduction of the corporate tax, even though it's good for the manufacturers, but it will not going to benefit the local mwananchi unless the prices of the basic commodities is controlled. When you are given a tax holiday as a manufacturer, unless you cascade it down to a reduction of the prices, of the commodities you are selling, the 90% of Kenyans are not going to benefit from this particular tax holiday. And I think what government should do in National Assembly is that we should continue to revise this stimulus package as we go by. I know for a fact that we have very many people and very many entities who have not paid their KRA dues, and immediately these curfews and lockdowns, cessation are going to be revised, and we know we go back to our normal businesses.
Right.
Most Kenyans and most businesses are going to be slapped with very huge bills from the Kenya Revenue Authority. But I would want to see a situation where the government forfeits some of the infrastructural development in this country that are not important, at least for one financial year, so that we only have a year where we only have the government only providing the very basic services that includes paying salaries of the Kenyan workers, repairing of roads that are very critical, but we can put a stop on these very beautiful super highways so that Kenyans can recover. And then and continue to enjoy some kind of tax holidays, and then we can resume all our energies after the country has stabilized. This is not the time to begin talking about funding luxuries, and that we should only restrict into funding things that support a basic life.
Now, speaking of things that support basic life, we are told still on this paper that CBK is warning that 70% of small businesses risk collapse in these hard times. And we are further told that the micro businesses are finding it really tough. And this is no secret. As a leader, what have you seen on the ground, and what possibly truth is there to this assertion that 75% of these sorts of businesses could actually be no more by the end of this period?
Yeah, I mean, you understand that we have various economic activities that have been supporting the local economies. You go to, counties of Nakuru, where areas like Naivasha, the people have always survived on flour farming, and there is no more export of flowers to the countries. You go to countries like Meru, there is no longer export of miraa, so the local economies has come to a complete halt. You go to areas of, Bungoma, where we've been surviving on coffee, sugarcane. The same sector is not doing very well. And even with big businesses like Norfolk hotels, we were told they have closed down. We are told that all the media houses, a number of them, employees are having their pay cuts, others are being forced to go home. And I think this points to the fact that the third world countries, the economy of third world countries cannot be able to support total lockdowns. And I think if you look at the number of people who are suffering or who have died out of COVID-19, even in Africa, the number cannot be compared to the effects of lockdown the effects of the local economy being, come down. And some people are simply saying that I would rather die of COVID-19 than watch my children die of hunger.
Yes.
There was a story of a lady in Mombasa who was unable to provide food for her children, and to keep the optimism of the children that there is food coming, she was cooking some stones.
Yes,
so this shows how desperate the situation has degenerated. And the only solution that can be made available is for us, the political elite, the civil society, everybody to come on board and try to be able to come up with a solution that is going to cushion Kenyans, not necessarily by also exposing them to COVID-19.
Right, and speaking of that still, COVID-19 is a huge story, so it's being covered adversely in the local dailies, especially the main ones. In the Daily Nation this morning, we are told COVID-19 is no longer an urban problem as rural tallies go up. And we're being given the numbers this morning, and they're actually astronomical. As you've been hearing in the daily briefings, they keep going up and up. And we are having Mombasa having 41 cases. That's the latest tally. Jomvu 10, Vita 10, Changamwe 6, Kisauni 5, Likoni 5, and Nyali, excuse me, at 5. And then Nairobi has Kibra with 35, Langata 15, and Bakassi Central 6. And, these are the main areas. But then Kiambu County is being brought into the fold with Thika and Kikuyu. What do you make of this, especially given that the curfew, or rather the partial lockdowns, were meant to prevent this exact problem from, rolling out?
To me, I am not worried with these numbers going up at all.
Oh, really?
The numbers are going up because we are testing very many Kenyans. And this therefore means that if we are going to provide testing kits in every market centers in this country, in every institution in this country, we are going maybe to report in a day that we have maybe 200,000 or 500,000, people who are testing positive, COVID-19 positive.
So this is just us catching up?
Then I mean that we have very many Kenyans there who have not tested.
Yes.
But the fact that we have not been told by the ministry that we've had this number of deaths from people in Kangemi, in Goma, or in Kisumu, whom we have tested, and they are COVID-19 positive. This shows that very many Kenyans are having this virus.
Yes.
And the fact that this virus will take about 15 days to begin showing signs or to strike, then therefore this means that if you lock down the country, not locking down, you close our borders, and you wait for about 15 or 20 days, then you will be able either to pick up those who will show signs, or maybe they will heal naturally, and the country will be free of COVID-19. But we have a big problem here of the truck drivers who traverses the corridor from Mombasa to Kampala to various parts of this country. Yes. And the government protocols at the border, at the exits and the entries, is also contributing to the spread of this virus.
How come?
In my own county, in Bungoma, we had a traffic snail of these truck drivers all the way from Malaba to Bungoma, covering about 42 kilometers.
Yes.
And when these truck drivers are waiting to be tested or to go through the border exit protocols, they are interacting with the common mwananchi. Some of them, I'm told that, for example, we have truck drivers who come from Eldoret, who come from Bungoma, who their rural areas is along the highway. So while they are waiting for the traffic to lessen and go through the exit protocols, they will have a day or so to go and see their families.
Yes.
So now we have when this COVID-19 was reported, the elites, some of us who travels by plane to countries in Europe, in China, who are the ones who are transmitting it.
Yes.
But now, the people who are transmitting these viruses are these truck drivers who are, engaging in transport shipment of cargo. So there must be a way that we are going to do as a country to ensure that we sort out this problem.
Yes. Now, obviously, this sort of thing is the snarl up that you've alluded to is something that is caused because they're trying to test at the border, and therefore it takes a long time to get the results, and therefore we have that snarl up. So, of course, there are experts on this matter that can better advise on how to deal with this, but at the same time, I wonder what could be done as at the local level. Would you have them in camps that are containing them, where they don't interact with the locals, or how would you handle this, particularly at the local community level?
What KRA should do
Yes.
is that they should cascade the testing centers, approval centers
Yes.
along the highway.
Yes, yes.
That you don't have to arrive at Malaba for you to begin going through the clearance protocol. You can have one clearance protocol at Webuye, another clearance protocol in Tarbo, another clearance protocol in Kandui, so that by the time you arrive at Malaba, you are just showing a document, then you pass.
But then I wonder how, because you're talking about two countries, this side of the border might be happy with the results, but who knows whether the other one, let's say Uganda, would be happy with that. And joining the conversation is Mark Bichachi, who's a political strategist. Mark, we are talking about COVID-19 no longer being an urban problem. It has now shifted to our localities and rural areas, and the tallies are indicating that. There's the argument that this is because of more testing, and obviously the truck drivers that have been quite a headache to the whole region. What do you make of this, and how do we deal with them being part of the, problem that is the spread of COVID-19 to the rural areas?
Well, Trix, thank you for the question. And I remind Kenyans that indeed this is a problem that is now in our towns. It's not in the upper hills and the posh houses anymore. It is everywhere. And that calls for two things. Number one, it calls for preparation, because there's very little we are going to do to be able to stop it. Because can you imagine that if Kenya stopped all the truck drivers moving around, that is an impossibility. So the reality of the matter, how to deal with it, is number one, county governments have to step up, and we must congratulate counties such as Mombasa, which have taken the challenge and put up the bed capacity that is needed to take care of this challenge. But secondly, it seems that government protocols alone are not going to be able to keep us safe. Therefore, people need now to take seriously, wear your masks, social distance, wash your hands. All of those things need to happen, and we need to roll out a very serious campaign in rural areas to make sure that people are prepared, because remember, that's where the bulk of our retirees and old people live. So they need to be kept safe, because we know COVID-19 has an adverse effect on them. But also, let's remember, most of the people who have got poor health facilities also in the rural areas. So this is a big, big call, not only for the government, but for the people of Kenya to actually step up for their own health and safety.
Yeah, and still on that, another story in the Daily Nation tells us that the shortage of workers and funds are crippling COVID-19 war in Pokot. I'd imagine this would be something that could be a parallel situation to what's happening in other counties. What do you make of this? Because evidently this is not a disease, or rather an infection, viral infection, that can be dealt with limited workers. And this, of course, to me, would be a red flags, and alarm bells should be going off as far as this is concerned, because we have been told in the previous story that we did analyze that there is a shift from the urban areas to the rural communities. So Pokot and other areas, what should we be thinking of in terms of mitigating factors, Mark?
One of the things that this calls for is a shift to how we viewed poverty in this country. For a very long time, the poor have been ignored, the rural areas have been ignored, and we need to relook at that. Part of the reason why even the urban centers such as Nairobi were unable to contain it is because we can't lock down. You can imagine trying to lock down Umoja. Forget about Kibra, just think about Umoja.
Right.
So that is one, how do we think about poverty? And secondly, it's almost as if we had a manifesto 2 years ago that was prophetic. When we said we needed universal healthcare, we must ask ourselves what happened to that particular plan. Because if we had universal healthcare, We would have thought about bed capacity a long time ago. We would have thought about how someone in Pokot or someone in Mandera can access hospitals. We would have thought about how we can use community health workers to make sure the hygiene in rural areas is up to speed. And this is the time. I think right now what the country should do is take all the resources it has and prepare and implement universal health care. Because guess what? When you fall sick today, it's the government that's paying it. That's a form of universal health care. And that's what we need to do post haste.
Absolutely, and we are told on page one of the letters to the editor that the stimulus package to fight COVID-19 good, but invest more in prevention. Would you agree with this particular assertion that's being put on the Daily Nation's page 16?
Well, it's not just invest more in prevention. And I think people kind of lose the plot when they forget that the intention was never to stop COVID-19 completely.
Right.
It was to slow the spread. And if you look at the countries that are opening up, they're not opening up because COVID-19 is over in those countries. They're opening up because they have enough, a balance between the number of infections and the number of hospitals they have that are open. That is the key thing to remember. We're not going to stop this thing. And the investment that is needed is an investment in one, stimulating the economy, which is another kettle of fish, but an investment in making sure we have enough bed space, we have enough capacity, we have enough health professionals. And the thing that now, and we need to remember, is the president did declare a stimulus package, but it still needs to go to parliament for approval, and that needs to reflect in the 2020-2021 budget as well. So we need to be very conscious, knowing that this is a long-term war. This is not, it's not a sprint, it is a marathon that we are caught in as a country. And the more we think of it as a sprint and start saying, you know, open up tomorrow and things like that, no.
Yeah.
Even if we are opening up tomorrow, we must open up knowing the disease is going to be here with us for a while, and how do we contain and manage it moving forward.
Absolutely. And now there's a story that I honestly think is quite ridiculous, but it's made its way into the dailies. A story about how one cow started Narok's deadly clashes, and we're told it is worth about 20,000 shillings, but its staged disappearance caused the killing of 8 people and injury of many. Mark has talked about poverty, and do you think this is an indicator of poverty? Are we backward in our thinking? Because why would one cow spark this kind of problem at the community level? Or Honorable Baraza, how would you weigh in on this type of thing? Mzee Philip Patum here has said that cow was my life. It provided me with milk and was able to breed and bring me more cattle, and therefore the kind of fury that was brought on by its disappearance is seemingly justified to this individual. What do you make of this sort of headline, Honorable Baraza?
I don't think if it's the only cow that caused those kind of clashes.
Right.
There were very many other underlying factors. The cow was just a trigger. You know, you can have a beef with some people, some communities for a very long time, but you're only waiting for a trigger so that now you can begin those kind of infighting.
Yeah.
So I think as a government, as a country, what we need to do is that we need to be going deeper into the causes of this kind of ethnic clashes, as opposed to just engaging in firefighting, arresting people, stamping our authority. Because unless we address all those underlying historical injustices, you know, the differences that are mostly majorly is land.
Yeah.
I saw on TV one Masai Mzee saying that this land belonged to them, not to the Kipsigis. Yeah. And I mean, so those are the issues that the government should be able to address and solve once and for all. Otherwise, today we may say it was a cow. Tomorrow it could just be like a young man who went to misbehave in the neighborhood, then another neighbor canes that boy, and the whole village again will go up in arms against the other people who are perceived to be non-Maasais.
Right.
And also, this also emanates to what Senator of Narok said a few months ago, where he appeared to be warning non-Maasais. To me, that was fueling ethnic animosities. And this current clash that is happening there could just be one of one of the fights that are emanating from the incitement. That,
or would you say it is fueling,
incite.
or is it a reflection of latent sort of conflicts that most of us, or rather the media, is not paying attention to until it's triggered, as you have seen through this article?
Yeah, but again, when as a leader you appear to warn people who are non-Maasais, you are making the Maasai community develop some kind of a beef in their heart, and it's only a matter of time that it will explode, and like what I've just said, that the issues of a cow could just be a trigger to this ethnic violence.
And I love that you brought up the issue of historical injustices, because it is true that most of these issues emanate from that sort of feeling of being deprived. How then should we approach, perhaps from a leadership point of view, in dealing with these things before they get to a point where people are losing their lives?
It is very, very simple. The previous government have put enough resources into trying to unravel some of these historical injustices. We have a TGRC report, we have a Ndungu land report, we have the Waki reports, Philip Ransley. We have so many reports that is able to address some of these problems. So what we need as a country is the executive, led by His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, to go to the shelf, pick this document, dust them, because I'm sure they have gathered a lot of dust, and provide a time frame of and some kind of an implementation matrix, so that we have these things being implemented, so that the communities can know that there are problems emanated from this particular area, and so that we can forget about the past, we'll learn it in the history, and move forward as a country.
Mark Bichachi, when you see headlines such as this, a cow worth 20,000 shillings causing the death of several people in a modern country such as this, what do you think could be the problem? Is it the historical injustices to you? Is it poverty? Is it a lack of conflict resolution mechanisms, despite those reports that Honorable Baraza has talked about? What do you make of this sort of development?
First, in my experience, that if you go to the places where cattle rustling has happened, and a simple road is built and schools are built, then the incidences of cattle rustling reduce. So number one, yes, this is about poverty, and it's not the poverty of the individuals. It's actually the poverty of the community that is in question here. That even conflicts and things like that, they are based on the economic capacity of people, because people perceive, and politicians exploit this, that the other community or the other person has benefited because of the politics of the country. But when you go down to the core of it, it is because of poverty. It is the reason why you will find that during post-election violence, we could see that in the slums, and you could not find it in Guruguru because of the amount of resources that are available. And let's remember, politics and war are all driven by finances. There must be some kind of resource that is expected to be received. But this again is simply a flashing point to show that this country requires a healing process, which is why it is critical that we not only support the Ndungu reports of the day, but we also need to support the ongoing processes of trying to unite this country. And the BBI process is such a one. Because when politicians begin to talk and communities begin to talk, then you find resolution. Then actually you expose the hearts of the people. Because when you go to Maland and you hear the Ma talking so passionately about their land, then it begins to tell you that despite many years of reports, there is a simmering problem. So what needs to happen is this country needs to talk. We need to talk to each other. And I believe we honestly need to stop talking about campaigns and who's going to win in 2022. We need to just focus on talking and resolving the issues that are there, here and now, today. That's what our leaders should focus on. They seem so tone deaf to the current situations, to the current realities, that what they do is they fight each other on the basis of 2022, forgetting that we have a right now and right here to live through.
And that is the story that you can read more about in both the papers this morning, rather the Daily Nation and the Standard. And there's so much more being covered, particularly on the political front. The Standard is giving us a headline: Ruto splits Raila and Mudavadi, fallout over Jubilee purge. And we have in Uhuru State House, a goose is cooking. Don't let your ambitions of tomorrow cloud what you must do today. And we do encourage you to be a part of the conversation by answering the question on Twitter of the day. Do you think the House purge by Jubilee and NASA will strengthen party loyalty? I'm at Trixingado. Michael is at Michael G. Gitonga. The hashtag to use is KTN Morning Express. We take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more for you right here on Morning Express.